New leaders promoted from within the pack of fellow workers can find themselves in an interesting and uncomfortable position. And a great example is our colleague, Jackie Schwab. She's an IT professional, among all the other things she's really good at, which there are a lot, who is very good at her job. And most of us know that IT tends to be a profession where your work is often done alone. You have assignments, you have deadlines, you accomplish them, period. Jackie was so good at her job that one day she was promoted to a leadership position, something she felt totally unprepared for. Clearly, her bosses saw something in her and promoted her to a place they thought she could do the most good for the team.
And that can be an earth-shaking experience. Welcome. We are leading from north of center. I'm Cliff W. Gilmore, and I'm joined here by BJ Fitzpatrick Jr. We're going to take about 15 minutes to share our thoughts with you on the topic of the day, and then we'll open the floor to questions and stick around for as long as anybody wants us. You will find a Q&A button near the bottom center of your screen, so go ahead and open that up and you can hit us with questions anytime. We may field them in the midstream here, but odds are we'll come back and hit those questions at the end once we've done our rambling. So what do you do when, like our colleague Jackie, you are crackerjack at what you do, you're a stellar worker of the line, and then suddenly you are promoted from among your peers to lead a bunch of people who do the things that you did so well. Now at that point, once you've been promoted into that, you're kind of in the fight. But getting ready for that promotion really needs to start way before you actually get that call. So what we're gonna do is go back in time a little bit, and we're gonna share some tips and pointers on what you can do as a new or prospective leader to make that first day on the job a little bit less intimidating. And I know from having talked with Jackie about this stuff that she really would have appreciated having some of these tips in advance on her run up into a leadership position.
And full disclosure, Cliff, Jackie knows we're telling this story. I asked her yesterday. So how do you prepare yourself? We're going to dish this out to you in 3 bites. You can work, 3 bites you can work on, sorry, to take charge of your path. You think about leadership, you learn about leadership, and you create your own path.
Now, being an effective leader, I find, starts with thinking about what it means to be one, and then crafting your personal leadership philosophy. Now, to do this, you're going to have to answer 2 main questions. The first question is, what does leadership mean to you? Now, there are probably as many definitions of the word leadership as there are leaders, and that's okay. But what I have found is that many people don't take the time to stop and think it through and actually, just answer that question for themselves in the first place. We generally have a little sense about it, but leadership is very similar to trust. It's out there. We know what it is. We've got a sense for it. We think about it. We say, that's a good leader. I trust this person. But we don't stop and think through, like, what does this really mean? So the questions then are, what do you think makes a good leader? How do you think of the leadership role, and what are the values you expect a good leader to have? And you can go through that and go through that series of questions that all fall under that umbrella of what does leadership mean to you. You can answer those questions. And this is a very powerful thing, to just stop and ask those questions and walk through the answers and come up with them. And one of the coolest things about those questions in my mind is there's no right answer. It's truly an introspective question of just, what do you think? What do you feel? What do you believe about this? So the first question in developing your leadership philosophy is, what does leadership mean to you? The second question in developing your personal leadership philosophy is, what do you aspire to be as a leader? Now, one of my coaching clients came up with just a wonderful personal philosophy that had 3 parts to it. Her answer to that question was, as a leader, I aspire to be the guide, the guardian, and the glue for my team. And those were the 3 things then that she used really as her anchor points. There was a whole lot to unpack within each of those things, but what she keeps with her now on her desk is, these 3 things are what I'm trying to do every day. She has shared those with her team. She said, hey, this is what I think leadership is, and this is what I aspire to be. I want to be the guide. lost my own thinking on the 3 Gs of this particular thing here. But she wants to be the guide, the glue, and the guardian. And she checks her own work on those things, and she challenges her followers to check her on those things. So she's told them, this is what I'm trying to be as a leader, so help me be that. And I'll go ahead and share my own leadership philosophy, the elements of it. For me, there are 4, and they've evolved over time. Your leadership philosophy should evolve over time. It should be a living, breathing thing that grows as you learn. But the answer to my question about what I aspire to be is, I aspire to be a leader who serves those I lead, who creates trust in and within my teams, who fosters initiative in my team members, and who accepts that no one person is perfect, but that at any given moment, one member of a well-led team can be. So I use those 4 touchstones for myself. So I look and I say, hey, am I serving? Am I serving the people I'm leading? Am I fostering and building trust? Am I creating an environment where trust flourishes? Am I fostering initiative? Am I giving my folks room to run and use their own creativity and their own ideas? And finally, am I making sure that I'm not holding people to a standard of perfection that's completely unrealistic? And in fact, I'm giving good guidance, advice, and direction, good GAD, going into Overwatch with my leader, my team, and giving them the room to run so that they can be lifted up and they can be built and they can become more and better than they were before I became their leader.
So that was thinking about leadership. Next is learning about leadership. Do your training. We've all got requirements, and goodness knows, coming from the government, Cliff and I know a lot about required training. But go above and beyond. Take some extra leadership courses, and they'll definitely help you. And if you're strapped for cash, free learning is available everywhere. LinkedIn is a great place to start. I've done it myself. They have a huge library of free training resources that can be taken in very small chunks of time and done on your own schedule. And when the certificates of completion pop on your profile, people know that you're working on improving yourself. Another one that Cliff and I espouse all the time is reading. Reading is huge. And I want to take kind of an example, because Cliff and I read a lot, and I read all kinds of books. And I'm going to take 2 from opposite ends of the spectrum and tell you what I'm talking about. Because when you read a book, I always equate it to reading a golf magazine. If you read a golf magazine and try to take everything away from that golf magazine, you should not play golf, because your swing will be destroyed. Same thing with reading a leadership book. You're not going to read that and take that as your single point for your blueprint of being a leader. My 2 examples are, I read a biography of Churchill, Winston Churchill, great leader, led the UK to World War II success, a great ally for us and everything else. And he kind of proves that you can be about as crazy as you want to be and still be a good leader. I definitely didn't read that book and say, boy, I got to do some more paperwork in bed, or what all the examples that I saw in there. But there are awesome leadership examples for being stalwart, decision-making, and those kind of things. On the opposite end of the spectrum, another book I love, The 4-Hour Work Week. Do I espouse that we should all try to live a 4-hour work week, or do our work from Bora Bora, or be karate champions? No. But throughout that book are lots of great examples of how to get efficiency in your work life, how to do emails, how to do phone calls, how to make your work fit into the time you have. And that's what I would take away from that, rather than the awesome title of The 4-Hour Work Week.
BJ just gave a couple of books that have really resonated with him on the side of leadership. And one of the things I like to say when we're looking at leadership books and reading about it is, any book is a leadership book if you want it to be, if you read it through that lens. And I've got a short video out there on our website and a blog post about my favorite leadership books. So when somebody says, hey, what's the #1 leadership book you can read? There are things like Start With Why, and anything by Goleman about emotional intelligence. Greenleaf stuff on servant leadership is like, whoa, it's great. But that's all really dense stuff. My favorite book about leadership is Watership Down, and it's about bunnies. No kidding. So you can learn more about that on our website and get a little bit more background on why that book is applicable. But the key here is just read things through the lens of leadership to learn and grow and continue crafting your own leadership philosophy. Now, another aspect of learning about leadership is finding a mentor. Seek one out. Find somebody who you think is a good exemplar of leadership. And if you don't have a formal mentorship program within your workplace, go find them. Go ask them. And I've had people ask me, like, well, what do I do? Where do I find somebody? The answer is pick one and go ask them and just say, will you be my mentor? It feels weird. It seems strange. But that's the only way, if you don't have some sort of program out there that's going to give you a mentor, that you're going to end up with one. So pick a person and go ask them, and then be responsible for that relationship. Take charge of setting it up, maintaining regular contact, going to them with questions and asking from their guidance and advice. And what I have found is it's almost just a human trait. It's flattery. It's if you go to someone and say, hey, I've been watching and I'd really like you to mentor me as a leader. Most of the time they're going to say, oh, wow, really? Okay, sure. And then you build that relationship and go. They don't have to have a mentorship plan for you. You just need to find a mentor and get connected with them and go to them regularly to make sure that that happens. So summing up the learning part, hey, do your training, do your reading, read everything you do through a leadership lens, even novels. And then finally, go find a mentor. Find somebody who can help build you and lift you and be an outside voice as you continue on your own path as a leader.
And spoiler alert, finally, for the C in our upcoming acronym, create your path. Now, if you want to be a leader, own it. Don't sit back and assume or hope. Go take it. It doesn't hurt anyone or anything to say, I aspire to be a leader one day. I aspire to be promoted. While we have this as kind of the third bite of all the bites on your plate we talked about, it encompasses all the above. So learning and reading are all included here. That's how you create your path. That's how you own it. Now, you take all these into consideration. Don't forget to do your job. That sounds kind of obvious, but I've had a saying that I've given throughout the years. Kind of goes like, we've got leaders so worried about being great 2 or 3 levels from now that they forget to do a great job in the one they have today. It's about balance. This job, the one you have, the one you're doing, the one you pick up a pencil to do today, comes first. And truthfully, today's performance will be the most important thing that gets you promoted tomorrow. We talked about Jackie in the opening. It wasn't the leadership training she had done that got her promoted. It was the performance in the job she had and all the skills she showed there.
BJ, it's worth keeping in mind that that leadership is a lifestyle. It's not just about the position and the authority. So if you want to move into a position of leadership, you can start leading now. You can lead up the way you guide and advise a boss, the way you present them with options, the way you present them with critique. You can lead across with colleagues and peers and teams that you're coordinating with. You can help them and strengthen them as they go. It's not that you're in charge, it's that you're helping lift other people up as a leader. And certainly, even within your own team, you don't have to be in charge to help build other people and practice that leadership behavior. So it's just never too early to start leading by helping other people and preparing them to be leaders as well. And I am gonna touch on that one there. We went back in time and said, hey, you need to be ready for when you get the call saying, hey, we want to promote you. And maybe you're not seeking it. Maybe it just falls in your lap. And we've said in several other discussions that one of the most challenging things about leadership is that it chooses you. And often that's when you feel least ready, least prepared. Maybe you're just exhausted. You just don't feel like you could actually do it. But it's going to reach out when you least expect it, and the opportunity is going to come. Whether that's a formal promotion invitation you weren't expecting, or whether it's a circumstance where you look around and for whatever reason, everyone else is just on their knee going, oh no, you're the only one standing up at the moment. Doesn't mean you're better than any of them. It just means leadership is going to choose you. There will be situations where suddenly you're the one who has to say, oh no, I need to help carry this thing forward. So it starts early. It involves thinking and learning and studying and finding a mentor and those sorts of things. But also, as a leader, when you do get into that spot, be passing these ideas down to your own people. And I call that creating a chain of command of linked arms. The power structure in an organization, the line structure of who's in charge of who is one thing. But the idea of a very effective leader is, in my mind, built on reaching down and you're linked arms like this, and you're helping bring people up. You're looking at your folks around you and saying, you know what, I think you have potential to be a leader. Let me build you. Let me bring you up to this level. That is a mindset that is a very powerful thing as you're developing your own leadership philosophy and your own leadership style, is just helping the people around you reach their fullest potential and ultimately become leaders themselves.
One of the ways you can do this is take an opportunity to give your people tasks of increased responsibility. That can range from preparing a project from start to finish, heading up a team, or even filling in for you during your absence. The sky's the limit. All you have to do is use your imagination.
So I'm going to go ahead and take the wrap up here, BJ. And we're at the 15-minute mark. And so here's what we've talked about today, and here's what we've shared with you. Again, this video will be available online here within a couple of days. So if you missed something, you weren't taking good notes, or you can't read your own notes, that's what happens to me. You can go back and watch this one again. But here's the summary for it. We talked about 3 things. We gave you 3 bites. We said, think about leadership. Do the thinking. What does leadership mean to you? What is your own philosophy? What are your own values? We talked about learning about leadership. So do the training, take the training that's there if it's there. Do your own reading, read constantly, and seek out a mentor, seek out somebody to help you build. So that's the learn part. And finally, create your own path. You just need to own the fact that you want to be a leader. And also, don't forget about the job that you have to do today, because that will be the thing that gets you noticed ultimately and gets you lifted up. So here we have the acronym thrown out there for Sarah Becca. We talked about think, learn, and create. We just gave you all a little bit of TLC. Clap, clap, boom. There we go, hands in the middle. Now, with that.
Drum roll work?
Drum roll, yeah. Can you have a drum roll afterwards?
I tried it.
But
I didn't know if you could hear it though.
All right, but we hit it. We gave an acronym, TLC. We owned it. We rebuilt it and made it into our own. And we did it right here at 12 minutes and 16 seconds, 16 minutes, 16 minutes after we're at a wrap and ready to roll into the question and answer section if anybody wants it. So as we've done in the past, I'm going to slow down, take about 5 breaths. If any questions pop into the system, we'll field them. And if they don't, that's cool too.
Okay, deep breaths, deep breaths.
All right, so I have a question in from Chris, and in the interest of full disclosure, Chris Vicano is one of our official strategic partners with North of Center. As a plug, he runs a company called Vicano Creative. He does web design, graphic arts design, it's basically information packaging, and he does a heck of a job. He threw a question out saying, does thinking about leadership include examining other aspects of your life where you're already demonstrating leadership without formally thinking of it, such as parenting, coaching, little league, choir, whatever? Short answer to that question, Chris, is yes. And then I'll go to BJ because he took a breath and I think he has words.
I am that predictable. I was thinking of this the other day, and it just comes to my mind, and it has to do with my son, which he probably be mad for me saying this, but you go through, and I'm a Marine for 30 years, and what I say goes, and blah blah blah. We do those things, and I would tell my son, "Let's go. We're getting outside. We got to rake some leaves. We got to do this." And he would fight me and delay and have a bad attitude. And one day he said, "If you could just ask me please one time, that'd be great." And I was like, "You need to do what I tell you." But I thought about it afterwards and I have changed the way I say, "Hey, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to need you outside. So if you could come, I'd really appreciate it. That'd be great, because we got some work we need for you." And he'll say, "Okay, be there. Let me get something to eat." And I don't hear anything. And that's something I learned about my home leadership, which is a totally different kind.
And that gets to the idea that leadership is a lifestyle. And one of the advantages of thinking about leadership that way is that you can practice it all the time. We've gotten all the way through this discussion without mentioning communication-based leadership. But that's the framework that we use at North of Center. It's the foundation on which any leader can build more. And what it does is it puts communication at the center of what you do. One of the truths of communication-based leadership is that it's impossible to lead without communicating. But that comes from the idea that it's just impossible to not communicate. You're always communicating something to somebody somewhere. Even silence sends a message, and it's always happening. So if it's always happening, that means you can apply the CBL framework anywhere in your life, which means you can be the same person no matter where you are or what you're doing. You can do the same, you can apply the same principles, the same attitudes, the same courtesies. You can even exert authority in the same way at home as you do at work when the time is right. So the idea, again, the short answer, the most concise answer to Chris's question was yes, leadership applies throughout. And then our plug is that communication-based leadership framework is about something that you can't not do, whether you're a leader in a leadership position or not. You can't not communicate. So if you start from that framework, yep, you'll get stronger as a leader by putting those things into practice every day, in every way, in every minute throughout. Now that wrapped, I do see a question up. Sarah Becca asked, I do have a question about finding a mentor. Would it be appropriate or make sense to seek out more than one mentor for different aspects of your professional and or personal life?
So Cliff, she read my mind because we cut this out of the notes when we were talking about it, when I had added that in there. Don't be afraid to have more than one. I'm thinking of one potential downside. Make sure they all know, especially if they're in the same place, because you wouldn't want anybody to think, well, they're checking what I tell them off the other person. You let them know. It's like, oh, you're a really great mentor. And maybe it's, you decide one person's a great whatever mentor, and then you choose another mentor because maybe they're have a similar background as you and you want to find out different things. So there's lots of reasons you could have different mentors. Just be upfront about it. But I recommend it.
And so, the idea there is that you choose the people who can lift you up. You choose the right people to give you the strengths that you need. And sometimes you're looking for somebody who can just give you encouragement and motivation. Sometimes you're looking for a person who can give you, a hard critique from the outside looking in. That's very much the role of a coach. BJ and Jackie, who we mentioned, and we all serve as leadership development coaches as well, one-on-one. And that's essentially a mentorship role where folks come to us and say, hey, I need somebody who can listen to me objectively. They're not inside my organization, and they can be a confidential sounding board and offer critique and sometimes criticism from the outside looking in. One of the things that happens a lot in my own coaching is that I'll get somebody coming in all fired up telling me about their day, and then I'll be able to stop and say, like, it sounds like a you problem. And that's not necessarily something that they're looking to hear, but somebody from the outside looking in can do that. What I'll close with on this particular question, though, is I'll tie back to one of the other truths of communication-based leadership, which is that our capacity to communicate is finite. So while yes, it's okay to have more than one mentor, and if you do, definitely, as BJ said, let them know that you're also working with other folks, just so that you don't create a situation where they think you're cross-checking them. But if you're going to go with more than one, just be aware of that limit on our capacity. Our communication capacity equates to time. We only have so much time in the day. When you take 24 hours and you subtract sleeping, eating, using the can, brushing your teeth, then you only have so much. And then you've got your work time. Your time is finite. So if you need a couple of mentors, absolutely, but make sure it's a prioritized decision, that you're looking at it saying, hey, I only have so much time in my day. My capacity is finite. It's limited. How do I want to allocate that? And if the right answer is 2 mentors, maybe even 3, that tends to tap into people's time. Then you're just being mentored all the time. But keep that in mind. Keep in mind that need to prioritize your finite capacity and make sure that you're not using that up and then ultimately distracting you from that third bullet we hit where it was, you need to own your job and focus on your job and make sure you're doing well in the thing you're doing. If you suck too much of your capacity over towards being mentored, then it's entirely possible you lose focus on the job that you actually have. And it's not going to help you well to be the most well-mentored person in the universe if you're missing deadlines at work, for example. So Sarah Becca, I hope that answered your question. BJ and I both offered some different perspective there. Going back, I didn't say it as well. The classic question, Chris, did we answer your question? Was that sufficient and helpful? I'll leave a couple seconds to, see a thumbs up back or some such in the Q&A if you'd like. All right, cool. Looks like we hit the mark with Sarah Becca. And I'm going to scroll quick. Chris, all right. Yep. Chris said, yep, Roger. So we've got, affirmation there that we gave you something useful in response to your questions. And I'm going to go ahead then. It looks like, we don't have any more in the queue. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple more seconds to breathe. And then if we don't hit anything else, then we'll do our classic wrap up, which is getting tighter and tighter because who wants to listen once we've said no? Once we're done, dang it, that's when you all start shuffling books, putting them in your book bag, looking at the door. So I'll give a couple seconds to breathe, and then we'll wrap if there aren't any more questions. As always, I want to thank you for investing your time with us. As I said, our capacity is finite, and you've given some of your time to us today, and I really appreciate that. If you liked what you heard, you found it valuable, please do pass the word that, we're out there. The whole point of this is to give 15-minute bite size and then a little bit of open coaching access really during the Q&A part of this thing. We think that's a great way from our side to say, hey, let's just give who we are to the people who may need it. So if there's anybody out there who might want to come on in, please do recommend us to them. And that's where I think I stop talking and BJ has another line.
As usual, we invite you to visit our website, northofcenter.com, and you can find all of our awesome stuff in the resources tab, but you can tool around in there and find out some basics on the communication-based leadership model, amongst some other things. Go check it out, see what's in there. You can also reach us directly by email at reachnoc@northofcenter.com, reach NOC at northofcenter.com.
So truly from North of Center's family to yours, be safe, be healthy, and stay connected. And thanks for your time. We look forward to seeing you again. Take care.
See you guys.